The truth girls. The truth girls.
Hi everyone. Well, the other day I was in a store and this newspaper caught my eye. It's the local paper La Presse, French language, and there's an article here that's called Créer un bébé de la DPJ, which means creating a baby for the CPS, basically Child Protection Services. And they explain that doctors inseminated a patient who suffered from mental illness, who was a victim of conjugal violence, and who had previous trouble with the law. Barely born, the child was given over to the DPJ, which is the CPS. And then inside they have a whole big 2-page article basically making the case that you should have to go through a more elaborate screening process to qualify for assisted reproduction using donor eggs or sperm. And the argument that they make is, well, if you want to adopt a baby, you have to go through an elaborate screening process. So why shouldn't you have to go through the same thing to be approved to adopt donor gametes? And when I saw this, really alarm bells went off, because what this is coming down to is the issue of, should people have a license to parent? And this is something that's been brought up many times before. Motherload, should parenting require a license? And they say here, periodically someone comments that perhaps parenting should require a license, just as it is a requirement for driving a car, or in some places owning a dog. And then they give an example of a very, very bad parent that didn't report their adopted child missing. This wording comes up a lot. Just about every time you hear the parenting license argument, you hear, well, you need a license to drive a car, so why not a license to be allowed to raise your own children? And you know where this is popular? This is popular in communist China. And guess what they say here in the article on China Daily? You must acquire a license to become a driver, a lawyer, or a doctor, but should we pass certain exams to become parents? That line is starting to sound like propaganda to me. This is actually a really, really big debate that's been going on for a long time. And in fact, look, I just have the cover because I read it a lot and I dragged it around with me and it's shredded. Future Shock. This book talks about professional parents. Why should the people who are the biological parents raise the children? Wouldn't it be better for the children to be raised in professional parent families? And then as they get older, they would graduate from the family and new ones would come in. Well, you know what? We actually have that system in place now, and that's basically the foster care system. The parents who are deemed unfit, their kids go to the professional parents. And when they get to be 18, they are graduated, which is actually just called aged out. And once you've been aged out, you're pretty much on your own. Of course, there's one thing that professional parents can't be taught by any course, and that is how to love a child. Because love is the most important thing you need if you're going to raise a child. Love, lots and lots and lots of love. I find this is a really interesting topic, and here's a very interesting article on it. On the albertmoller.com blog, should parents be licensed? An ominous new debate. And in this article, what you'll find is that this is very deeply tied into eugenics. And the root of this is really eugenics. This is the same old argument that some people should not be allowed to reproduce. And if you look at the Albert Mohler article, you'll see that some of the examples given by eugenicists are that maybe you have genetic deficiencies, or that maybe you don't have the financial means to have more children, and so somebody's going to have to keep you in check, because you just can't keep cranking out babies and expect the government to keep giving you welfare. All these kinds of things. It starts like that with people in those groups, and then it just extends more and more and more until eventually everyone's in that group. And the woman, I don't see why someone who used donor sperm that came from a lab should be treated any differently than someone who used donor sperm that came from some drunk guy she picked up at a bar. Maybe it's in the interest of all children that you should be screened if you're going to get donor sperm. But the next step is for you to be screened if you're not getting donor sperm, if you're using your own genetic material. And the next step after that would be for basically everybody to get screened. This is just an argument that they're making to deceive you. And you know what? You might be thinking, yeah, parenting license, it's not going to happen, but we're actually closer than you would think. In fact, in the States, they already have a program called SACWIS, Statewide Automated Child Welfare Information System. Basically what this is that in the states where this is implemented, all kinds of information goes into this database. Like if you have had any dealings with welfare or with social workers or anything like that, it goes into a file, and it says here, states and tribes are encouraged to incorporate other programs into a SACWIS, such as the following: courts, juvenile justice, education, mental health, adult protective services, medical providers, providers of services to stabilize families and ensure child well-being. What they're trying to do is create a database that's going to have basically all the information on you from like every aspect of your social and legal and medical even situation. And down the road, don't you think that maybe when a woman goes to give birth in a hospital, they're going to run her and her partner, if there's a partner, through the SACWIS database and see whether they should be allowed to leave the hospital with their baby, which basically amounts to the same thing as a parenting license. So they don't need to actually implement a parenting license. They could just implement this system on a larger scale and make it that if the red flags go up and you don't pass, what they're looking for, they just don't let you go home with your baby. And man, I just gotta tell you, I think this is totally insane. The government, will tell you that these things are done for your protection, but I think that the most dangerous thing is for the government to have too much power, and this is one example of what I would consider too much power. Man, this is just really crazy. So I just wanted to give you a heads up and remind you that when you see these kind of articles and these arguments, don't fall for it, because yes, one child had to be taken away from his mother, who happened to be inseminated at a clinic instead of, like I said, by some guy she met at a bar. And the child is in an adoption home and will probably be okay, but what does this have to do with anything with parenting licenses? Really nothing. The case is really not special, and they're just making it sound like it's special, and don't fall for it. Don't let them deceive you, because man, this government really needs to be kept in check, and people need to think for themselves and realize when they're being tricked. Well, leave me your comments, let me know what you think, and thanks for listening to me, and I'll see you next time.
The truth occurs.